Hey guys, so I want to read what I put in the description. It says, "Life as we know it is changing at an increasingly faster rate. There's no turning back now. Humanity is approaching two different singularities at the same time. They both they're both the result of retrocausality. The only question left to ask yourself is which singularity will you merge with?" So, the more time that goes on, the more evident it's becoming that we're approaching two singularities simultaneously. One singularity is the technological singularity with the AI hive mind, that we all, we keep hearing about tech stuff, and that's the singularity that everyone is kind of aware of. But there's another singularity. The other singularity is the singularity that's not really talked about, but is definitely happening because we can feel it. It's the spiritual singularity. Now, you could call the spiritual singularity Christ consciousness, the coming of Christ, ascension, rapture, whatever word you want to use. I guess it's more so your background that determines what name you give it. Really, it's beyond any words we could use, but that's just my disclaimer. I like to put that disclaimer out there just because people, especially people who are part of the hive mind, like to argue about semantics to distract away from the actual topic. Like, that technique never gets old to them. But anyways, me and some other people have started calling it the consciousness arc. I didn't coin the phrase, but I do use it. So the consciousness arc is basically a working metaphor that describes the higher collective consciousness that's currently separating from the dominant lower collective consciousness of the earth. From a Christian perspective, you could call this the separation of the wheat and tares. I think calling it the consciousness arc is pretty accurate though, because there's layers of meaning within the archetypal definition of an arc. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think it's funny that the word archetype actually has the word arc in it, which is kind of a funny synchronicity because I've been using that word for years, but I never realized that until now. But anyways, the consciousness arc is where we connect with the higher collective consciousness, and it's there that Christ consciousness is experienced. I say there like it's a place. I mean, you could think of it as a place, but it's more so a state of consciousness or a state of mind, depending on how you look at it. Now, the higher collective consciousness isn't something that's separate from us, that's somewhere way out there. The higher collective consciousness is made from the consciousness of people like you and me who have basically mentally disconnected themselves from the chaos and negativity of the lower collective consciousness that dominates the world. When someone experiences the love and bliss of the Christ consciousness state, that expansion, and it is literally, it feels like a literal physical sensation of expansion. That person's expanded consciousness actually merges with the love and peace of others who are also experiencing that Christ consciousness. So it's all these consciousnesses full of Christ consciousness that merge together to form the higher collective consciousness of Earth. Some would say you could call it the beginning of new earth. Now, this merging isn't a physical thing, of course. It's like a merging of something beyond words that can be felt within your own emotional state. But it's more than just an emotion. I use that word just because that's the closest word I can come up with. So it's like a network of Christ consciousness, but instead of using the word network, because that kind of has a technological connotation to it, I think the word collective sounds better. But yeah, it's really nice when you can just clear your mind from all the distractions and merge with the consciousness art. Because when you're on it, you know that there's other people also experiencing that same love and bliss that you're experiencing, even though your physical bodies aren't together, if that makes sense. It's literally a knowing that's felt in your heart. And I think it may be that the spiritual singularity is actually playing a role in triggering the technological singularity acceleration, because the dominant lower collective consciousness is trying to prevent us from separating ourselves from the matrix. So that's what's, causing this technological singularity to just keep accelerating. It's trying to hold on to us. It's trying to keep us here. I mean, we're a power source for it. So naturally, the AI hive mind wants to try to hold on to its energy supply. It's almost like it's a race to the finish line. And in the end, you'll either merge with the AI hive mind, which has already taken over most of this place, or you'll merge with the higher collective consciousness, which is connected to Christ consciousness. Now, I think this race is going to span years from a human perspective. It may seem kind of long and drawn out, but from a spiritual perspective, everything is accelerating really quickly. And I think one could also argue that the technological singularity is actually having a hand in triggering the spiritual singularity acceleration too. Certain people are feeling this calling within themselves to board the consciousness arc. And as the AI hive mind control grows and this place becomes more and more ridiculous, certain people will actually strengthen their stance in mentally separating themselves from the chaos. So there's like a growing polarization or separation as both singularities continue to accelerate at the same time. So it's like the two singularities are kind of activating each other in a way. I'm not sure if our physical bodies will remain here or not when this thing reaches a crescendo. I have a gut feeling that when things reach a climax with both singularities, the people who merge with Christ consciousness won't even care either way if the hive mind eventually kills their physical body or not, because the bliss will feel just that powerful. So I want to go back to why the term consciousness arc is such a useful metaphor to use when we're talking about this spiritual singularity. So to board an arc, we have to sail on the ocean, right? Now, I think the ocean is a really good metaphor for multiple things, including the higher collective consciousness, especially when you consider the fact that we aren't our body. Now, I know a lot of people, for a lot of people, the ocean is used as a metaphor that represents God. And, I would say that's pretty accurate too. You could think of each person's consciousness or soul as a drop of water within the God ocean. And within that God ocean, there is so much love and bliss and all kinds of wonderful high frequency emotions. And again, I'm using ocean as a metaphor. Really, God can't be fully described with human words. So the best we can do is use analogies and come up with metaphors. But yeah, this whole spiritual singularity process is so hard to put into words. That's why a lot of times you'll hear me using the same word or analogy interchangeably. But merging with the consciousness arc and merging with the Christ consciousness is a way to sail on that God ocean of love. And when you're on the ark, it feels like returning home. When you're able to quiet your mind, quiet your negative thoughts, and merge with it for long enough, your emotional memory of what you really are starts to come back to you. Now, unfortunately, that memory can fade if we don't stay on board, but it always comes back when you get back on the consciousness arc. And this higher collective consciousness carries so much of God's love and peace within it, because deep within our soul, that's what we're made of. And when those periods of merging are happening, it's almost like your awareness expands and you're able to understand things that you wouldn't even notice in your quote unquote regular state of consciousness. I say quote unquote because the regular state of consciousness, that's not how we were meant to be. We were meant to feel what we feel on the consciousness arc all the time. That's the real us. That's the regular state of consciousness. We call it not regular because this whole earth that we're on, most people don't feel that way or experience that state of consciousness. As we wake up more and more, so I define consciousness as the essence of what we are, and I define our mind as the thoughts that we think. See, the thing is, it's not just our consciousness that's waking up. It's our mind that's waking up too. Like, I'm sure all of you are starting to pick up on like the archetypal messages decoded in movie themes. And not just the negative archetypes, but the positive archetypes too. We're also starting to decode deeper meanings in songs. There's a whole group of people in the community who use music to help them board the consciousness arc. Now, I know some people will try to say that certain music was made by the elite music industry, so that means that all music is bad. No, that's not the case. The AI hive mind would love for you to dismiss all music as being evil. Music and art are meant to be a reflection of your own God-centered consciousness, because it's your unique consciousness that's observing and collapsing the probability wave into your perceivable reality bubble. That's what happens when you observe a piece of art or music or anything really. I mean, when you're looking at a painting or you hear a song, only you can look through your eyes or use your ears to perceive it. No one can observe it for you but you. That's why two people can get totally different meanings from the same song. And I think it's your state of mind that's going to determine if you're resonating with lower frequency thoughts or higher frequency thoughts. And that in turn is going to influence what kind of metaphors and messages you're able to hear in the music. You just have to keep your mind open to just the possibility that there's a reason why we've always been told that choirs of angels sing in heaven. There is something divine about the music, and I don't think we should limit ourselves to thinking that, um, you know, that only the music that's sung in heaven can convey God's love. So, with that being said, anyone who leaves me comments about how negative and evil music is, I'm just going to erase it, because my comment section, it can't be a place, it cannot be a place for the AI hive to co-opt what's being said here. Not all songs are corrupt. So, yeah, with that being said, just take time to listen to some of your favorite songs. And if you listen with an open mind while focusing on love, I promise you'll start to pick up on a deeper meaning behind the words. The first step, though, is to clear your mind of distractions and negative thoughts that can lower your frequency. And the second step is to ask God in your mind, if God could send me a message through this song, what would He want to tell me? Now, keep in mind, music is a form of poetry, so the higher messages that are communicated to you may not always use proper grammar or be in complete sentences, but they're there. For those with ears to hear, they're there. And by listening to it with an open mind, you can really just pick up on that. But you have to ask God. You have to ask God, please, send me a message through the music. And be listening for references to bodies of water, so like a river, the shore, which is conveyed through homophones a lot. Songs that mention sailing or a ship, the ocean. But I want to close this video with a song that just screams consciousness arc. Now, this song is just one of countless songs that talk about the consciousness arc and a spiritual awakening. So if you're only listening to the audio, I would suggest you look at the screen to see the lyrics. And notice how the word see, S-E-A, has a double meaning of see, S-E-E, which for me, because I can only speak for myself, for me that sticks out as a reference to using your spiritual eyes to see that there's a sea or ocean of love. Now, I think that Sea of Love is actually a reference to the consciousness arc. Y'all, it's so blatant. It's so blatant when you use your spiritual ears to listen to the music. But I don't want to take up too much time decoding the whole song. Real quick, there's one other word I really want you guys to pay attention to. In the lyrics, it uses the word day multiple times. Now, in this song I'm going to play, and countless other songs, you'll hear the word day being used, which for me is a metaphor for a spiritual awakening. Because think about it. What do you do during the day? You don't sleep, you're awake. I really think this song is communicating being awake, which could mean your mind waking up and turning on to see the truth that God is real and the higher collective consciousness is real. There are so many songs that carry a higher meaning. I think God has always been there in plain sight, calling your name, trying through many different avenues like music, nature, you name it, to get your attention, synchronicities. But maybe we never noticed before because we were blind. We were asleep. But now that we have eyes to see and ears to hear, we can't ignore God anymore. So listen to this song. I'll put a link in the description below to other videos I've done that decode song messages. But in the lyrics for this song, I highlighted the word day to make it stick out more, and I added the C homophone. So I'll play the song, be reading the lyrics on the screen, and don't forget beforehand to clear your mind of any negative thoughts, focus on love, and really ask yourself through the song, God, if you could send me a message or a sign through this song, what would you want to tell me about?
I knew you were my pet. I wanna tell you how much I love you. Come with me, my love, to the sea.